So now we're at verses 6 to 11. Let's deal with them. Therefore, since it remains for some to enter it, and those who formerly had good news proclaimed to them failed to enter because of disobedience, he again determines a certain day, today, saying through David after so long a time, just as has been said before, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Y'all, you guys remember ever hearing that one phrase, today is the day for salvation? That's what's in mind right here. When he's talking about he's again determined a certain day, I can see how Adventists would like to take and twist that, again, out of context, because that's all they know how to do. But the author qualifies what he's saying, or he puts in perspective what he's saying. Just as David said long ago, today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. Today, if you hear the good news being proclaimed to you, do not harden your heart towards it. But as we've seen in these bootsy, goofy TikTok lives, these so-called atheists will harden their hearts to the gospel being preached to them. Notice what he says, verse 8, for if Joshua had given them rest, he would not have spoken of another day after that. So there remains a Sabbath rest. That's that word sabbatismos that I used in the last video. There remains a Sabbath rest for the people of God, okay? For the one who has entered his rest has himself also rested from his works, as God did from his. So to the Adventists, how are you going to live under the law and think that you're obtaining your salvation by your works, when this clearly says that the one who has entered the rest, who has entered the Sabbath, has himself rested from his works in the same way that God rested from his works on the Sabbath day? I know y'all don't get it, though. This goes over your heads because, again, we do real exegesis around here. You guys do not. You rely on the supposed visions of a false prophet. Therefore, the author says, let us be diligent to enter that rest, not keeping a day, but that rest. What is that rest? It's Jesus. Jesus is that rest. Lest or else anyone fall into the same example of disobedience. And that's interesting because the disobedience that those Jews fell into, or those Hebrews had fallen into, the children of Israel, was idolatry. Practicing some form of religion, even though the one true God, Yahweh, had delivered them through Moses out of slavery. In the same way, the Adventists idolize a day, and they idolize the law, and they try to twist Christ's words. If you love me, you will keep my commandments. Yeah, that's not exactly what he was talking about. But because you guys must live under the law, that's how you choose to see it. So you guys love to quote the book of Hebrews. You like to quote Genesis. You like to quote all these things, Deuteronomy, all of that. But you guys miss the point. You guys don't understand the context behind those things. Who are the main characters here? Believers, Jesus, the rest. Who are the audience? Still the Jewish Christians. Situation of context. If you believe the gospel, there is a Sabbath rest, a sabbatismos for you. It is in Jesus Christ, not the day, not the temple, Jerusalem, or the land. It's not in Israel. And anyone with a pair of eyeballs can see that there is no peace in the land right now. And what was the reference? The reference was the Sabbath day. It was being compared to the rest that we believers have today, which is in Jesus. The one who trusts in Jesus has entered God's rest, and now he has rested from his works in the same way that God rested from his works on that Sabbath day, the original Sabbath day. That's why the day is being brought up. It's not being brought up as a means of having to live under it and having to observe it. It was brought up to be shown how and compared to Jesus Christ. That's why the land was brought. That's why the whole comparison of Moses leading the people out of bondage into the promised land, which was God's rest, for the sake of this example. This is the point that the author is making. This is how you do exegesis. This is how you discover what the author's original intention was. You don't do it by having visions. And what was the point? What is the application here? Jesus is better than the Sabbath day. It was symbolic of him. He fulfilled it. So listen, y'all. The people, me, myself, and the people that follow this page, we stand on the shoulders of real giants. We stand on the shoulders of real theologians, real apologists that really be in the field, getting busy with these other religions, these other denominations, these cults, you know what I'm saying? And really defend the faith. We stand on the shoulders of real giants. I stand on the shoulders of the reformers who stood on the shoulders of the church fathers, who stood on the shoulders of the apostles, who stood on the shoulders of Jesus, So that's how we do things around here. The Adventists, unfortunately, y'all don't have that. Y'all stand on the shoulders of people who claim to have, who took the interpretation of a woman who claimed to have visions, who was propped up by a guy, William Miller, who was an anti-Trinitarian. He was an Arian. So everything y'all believe is flip-floppy, it's wishy-washy. There's no solid foundation. No solid foundation. And even though some of y'all will claim you've never read Ellen White's books, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because your whole theology has been influenced. The people that promote the theology that you guys quote or learn from or whoever, they were influenced by Ellen White. So it doesn't matter that you haven't read her books. You are still going off of her interpretation. The fact that y'all don't know that is crazy. It's crazy. And y'all can get in y'all little circles, you feel me, and say, man, this dude's still talking. Yeah, well, this is the truth. And I want to help the people that follow my page be able to discern and rightly divide the word of truth. For real, though. In the way that I just did it in these past few videos. Really exegeting the text. Really getting into it. Aside from making music, my kids, all of that. Studying the Bible is I am really passionate about this, and I will defend it. You know what I'm saying? I'm just under the impression that none of y'all really want smoke.